I was reading through a Labour Court judgment that was delivered in April of this year. It regards a case of a person who applied for a job, got the job, was offered the contract, accepted the offer, and then retrospectively a criminal background check was done. That person was found to have a criminal record, and that job offer was then rescinded. It's the case of Connor versus LexisNexis in the Labour Court. The court finding that if there is no inherent requirement of the job to have a clear criminal record, it could cause unfair discrimination when it comes to employment opportunities. Kobus Hayward is the manager of Labour Court Matters of NIASA. What's the background of this case of Connor versus LexisNexis? Kobus, in the Labour Court. Good morning.
So this case pertained to, like you said, it's a criminal background check. When can a criminal background check be done? And should it be done in situations where there's absolutely no inherent job requirement? And the answer that the court held is that unless it pertains to the actual job, to the position that the candidate is going to be holding, then of course it's not necessary to do a criminal background check. And the employment equity is also very clear there on that it should be preserved in circumstances where it's absolutely necessary. Our stance, however, is that where do we draw the line? When is it not necessary for you to trust an employee? And we should remember that this matter was unopposed on the merits. The respondents simply raised a few technical points, but they left the merits of the case completely unanswered and undisputed. And I think it's just an opportunity lost.
9 days before this particular person was supposed to resume duties, he received an email from the company saying that they were retracting what they called a conditional offer of employment because the criminal record background check revealed 6 counts of theft, 1 count of fraud, 2 counts of defeating the ends of justice. From what I understand, this person would have been working in some sort of administrative capacity, but also working remotely from home. What would be some of the criminal charges or the criminal records which you would think would be quite important to general administrative types of jobs? I'm but a layman, and I would think that counts of theft, frauds generally are crimes of dishonesty and therefore would fall under the ambit of whether or not I'm approaching you for a job or not.
Exactly, and especially with a remote position, I think the trust that's necessary between the employer and the employee is much more than a person that you've got under your supervision. So I once again, I do think that if the matter was defended on the merits, there would have been a different finding. But just to get to your question, it is necessary to look at the convictions that the candidate was found guilty of in the past, because to see the nature of the offences and then to consider what impact that will have on the position going forward.
It's often an argument by people who have criminal records, and usually with non-violent crime, saying that it is very difficult to even get an interview with a potential employer simply because they have a criminal record. Is enough being done by the Department of Justice to at least help people expunge a record when it comes to people with criminal records applying for jobs in a very, very dire South African job market, Kobus?
Of course, there's always the onus that once the time frame has lapsed, that the criminal record should be expunged. However, we do know that the justice system is not always as it should be. But even in those circumstances, and even the circumstances that this case presented, the applicant was honest about his past convictions, even though not to the degree that the employer was requesting. In this circumstances as well, his past convictions, he did apply for expungement, and was successful in that. However, it still showed up on his criminal record.
Does this Labour Court ruling have any impact on current legislation or regulation in the Employment Equity Act and the Basic Conditions of Employment Act?
Not at all. The position's always been, and this is contained in the Employment Equity Act as well as the Code of Good Standards, to simply state that why do something if it's not necessary? You can't use, you shouldn't be doing criminal background checks, credibility checks, if it's not necessary for the inherent job requirements.
Kobus, really appreciate your time.